We are in the London Hotel in New York City, and just so happens that our paths have crossed, and Michael is here to do a book signing and to do some various events and wine things going on.
Yep.
And I'd love to just ask you a few questions and
Sure.
share with
Pleasure.
our Wine 2.0 friends and family what's going on. Like what got you thinking about this book, and why'd you write it? What was the inspiration for Wine Drinking for Inspired Thinking?
It goes back to my mom and dad, who had never had wine until my dad was in his early 30s, and he's a really romantic guy, and he wanted to do something special for my mom. So we figured he'd take her out to a fancy restaurant, and they'd order wine, because up to then they'd only ever had Manischewitz and Paso. So my dad orders a half a bottle of Mouton Rothschild, $9. Well, they're saying, hey, this stuff's pretty good. So they fell in love with wine, and my dad started going into New York to take wine classes. So he'd bring home wines for us to try, and he brought home a long list of adjectives for describing wine. Classic terms like tannic and oaky and fruity and so on. So we'd make fun of this and start making up our own wacky descriptors. Anyway, it brings home this bottle, and you could tell from the way he cradled the bottle that this was something really special. And he explained to us that it was an old Bordeaux, and most of the wines we'd had up to that point were kind of young. So my dad lovingly opens it and decants it. He pours a little bit for my brothers and I, a full glass for my mom and himself. My dad does the whole swirling and sniffing thing, and he's tasting it. You could tell he thinks it's great. But all eyes turn to my mom, because in our house, she's the supreme arbiter of taste. So we look over to my mom. She gives it a quick sniff. She tastes. She says, menopausal. That was her description in one word, because to my mom, the wine seemed a little bit over the hill. Now, my mom will tell you that today, she doesn't find that quite as amusing.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it gave us this feeling that it was fun to do creative wine description. So that was really the beginning of Wine Drinking for Inspired Thinking.
Awesome. That's great. That's a great, rich memory. So Michael, when we met, we were doing a YPO retreat, and you were our resource and teaching us about creative thinking and how Da Vinci thought. And you've got a number of books out there, one of which is How to Think Like Da Vinci.
Like Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah, and maybe just give me a word on that, and let's tie it into the inspired thinking piece.
We can do that, see, because I've been teaching people how to think like Leonardo da Vinci for many years.
Yes.
And now I'm teaching them how to drink like Leonardo da Vinci.
Perfect.
Because what happened was in 1995, I was co-directing a 3-week leadership development program in Switzerland. And it's for a group of investment bankers. And one of the resources on this program was Ted Hughes, the poet laureate of Great Britain. So Ted was teaching poetry to these bankers to try to get them to think out of the box. And Ted's advice on writing poetry was take a theme and then just write down all the words you think of. Don't edit yourself in any way. And then later you can put them together into a poem. It's the old writer's motto, write drunk, revise sober.
Right.
So these bankers are writing pretty cool poetry, and at night I got to go out and have dinner with the poet laureate and drink some great wines. And all of a sudden, light bulb went off in my brain. I said, I want to combine wine tasting with poetry writing. So I started to get the bankers to do comparative wine tastings and then express themselves poetically. And they would always say to me, we're bankers, not poets, but I would say, after the second glass of wine,
we're all poets.
Everyone is a poet. And sure enough, they would start writing these fabulous poems.
Yeah.
And the coolest thing would happen, because they would not only be amazed at what they came up with individually, but they'd look across the room and see that their colleague over there in accounting, or the one over here in IT, was more creative than they'd ever imagined. So it became this really cool team building exercise, and that's that's where the creative part really comes in.
Yeah.
It's a way to discover you're more creative than you imagined before. And guess what? I didn't really make it up, because that's what Plato and Socrates were doing in the original symposium. The word symposium means to drink together. That's where Western philosophy was born.
Yeah.
That's what Galileo, Machiavelli, Leonardo, Michelangelo were all doing at the Medici Palazzo.
So basically, what we've just proven here
Yeah.
is that all thought has come from great wine.
Well, it was
All good thought, all creative thought, all great Western
inspired
thought, inspired thinking.
Inspired
All right.
thinking.
Excellent.
And think about Thomas Jefferson and John Adams and George Washington, Monroe and Madison. The birth of this nation was formulated over wine dinners with some good music and poetic musing and reflection.
This is the first official interview
This is
of
first
the actual
of
release
the
day.
Released book.
And
this
Wine 2.0 exclusive.
nanosecond, Wine 2.0 exclusive. In the pre-release events that we've been doing up till
Yes.
now, the most exciting thing is people are saying, let me get 2 or 3 extra copies. I have a friend who's a sommelier. Oh my God, she will love this.
Yeah.
I have a friend who works in a restaurant. Got to get it for them. I have a friend who just loves wine and has a wine cellar. I have a friend I want to get introduced to wine. Got to get it.
Yeah.
Because the cool thing is that, see, what we do is we take, whether you are a wine pro
Yeah.
or an absolute beginner, if you're a wine pro, here's something that's a different approach to appreciation and enjoyment.
Yeah.
So it can be your personal renaissance to experience the newness and the freshness that made you fall in love with wine originally.
Which we have a lot of those people that are members of Wine 2.0 that are in the profession, and maybe this is a refresh for them. It's like, hey, step back. Why'd you fall in love with this in the first place?
It's exactly right. And that's what happens for people.
And for those that are more the newcomers or
What's so cool is they get to go without all the left brain knowledge that they have to get from our wine professional friends.
Yes.
But they get to go right to the very heart of poetic appreciation. And on that level, when somebody brings that freshness and openness and newness to that experience of the wine, they come up with the most evocative, profound descriptions of the wine, and the wine professionals at the table are saying, gosh, I never noticed that particular nuance in the wine you just described.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Well, it's kind of like when we were doing some of the exercises in creativity, and how you asked the question and said there's no restraints, whatever, and write down all the words or all the answers or possible solutions to this. And the thing we learned was it's the constraints that we have put on ourselves, that society's put on us, that education has put on us, that hinder us from being actually truly creative. And kids who at a certain age haven't had that yet, come up with a list that's a mile long. And adults are like, oh, they're ruling out things before they even put it on the paper.
And the beautiful thing is, we all know that. And if you go on any creativity course,
you actually pay attention.
They're very good. But the thing is that people understand that intellectually, but it's very hard for adults to get out of the box. I like to say that the best wine doesn't usually come in a box, and the same thing is true with thinking. So to guide people out of that box, I can give you all the research and the Nobel Prize winning studies that show the value of accessing the right hemisphere. Or I can just give you 2 glasses of really fine wine, and you're out of the left hemisphere, and you're into the playful, imaginative, free-flowing, free associative aspect of the mind where the muse really lives. And then you amaze yourself with how creative you've become, and we then aim to help you translate that into your everyday life. Once you realize you have that potential, then you're right, there's techniques like mind mapping you can actually use in business before you go out and start enjoying a good Burgundy. Thomas Walker said it in the 19th century. He said the art in using wine is to enjoy the greatest possible present gladness without any future depression.
Awesome talking to you, having a little Prosecco there while I'm interviewing you. Signing off.